good night, and welcome to Mindful Live 498. Are we on now? Welcome. It is 10:31, a very late start in the beautiful Twin Island Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, where they say God has his residence here. I won't fight that. It would be good to be neighbors with God, you know. Someone of that kind of power having a say here. Yeah. It is the 22nd of the 5th month in the year of our Lord 2025. Welcome. I am Nathan Springer, the host here, Mindful Live. Make sure you hit that like button, double tap the screen over there on TikTok if you are looking at it there. Hit that like button over on YouTube if you are checking it out over on YouTube. Drop a comment. I always go through those YouTube comments afterwards, so don't worry. If you have something to say on the repeat, be sure to hit it up and make sure you're subscribed. Nathan Springer over there on YouTube. Make sure you're subscribed if you are not yet subscribed. Hit that subscribe button. Make sure you're following over on TikTok too, because you know TikTok is strange. It unfollows people just like that. A very strange thing. Just need to get her people on the level. Triniview says same old PNM idea of reducing rent expense. Well, we're gonna talk about that. It's Thursday and we're talking. It's Thursday Talks. I took in the UNC's, the Prime Minister's post-cabinet news briefing, where they spoke about some of the issues they covered during their cabinet meeting, and I didn't have a problem with it. I like the idea of reducing rent, and I like the idea of getting things properly itemized, where they list all the renters, how much they're paying the rent. I have no problem with all of that. I have not a problem with all of that. I think that's generally a good thing. Let us know how we are spending our money. Let us know who we are spending our money on. Let us know who may or may not be robbing or not robbing us. Let's see where the money goes. And that's something that I always made note of. That's something I always wondered about. Why do we rent all of these buildings and state land is owned by the state, and state land is basically all of Trinidad? Not all, but a large chunk of Trinidad. Go build these buildings and stop the rentals. And reducing the amount of money spent on private security. I am in agreement with that also. A full agreement. I like those things. I like the idea of targeting waste and possible fraud and abuse. It seems like well along the lines of the Trump administration and the Doge initiatives that they did out in the United States, targeting just those three things, fraud, wastage, and abuse. And I have no problem with that. That's a good thing, especially considering that we need money as a country. We need money to be able to do the things that they want to do. They speak a lot about things that would cost money. So the Prime Minister said she understands this. So they are looking to cut costs where they can, and they are looking at other revenue streams. They didn't say exactly what those revenue streams would be. They did highlight the possibility of UE and the educational tourism, that being a possibility with the opening of the South Campus, and speaking also about making the Children's Hospital into a teaching hospital. I believe San Fernando has a section for that also. The Prime Minister was in aggressive form with regards to UWI, speaking kinda abrasively about UWI's intent to put the South Campus as some international medical school. They were upset about that. She said no, they built the building for law, and that is what the building must be used on. Otherwise, they will take it back. Okay, let's see how that all goes. UE is supposed to be an independent organization. They're supposed to basically have the run and captain of their own ship, but Mrs. Prasad Bisasa basically said they've been wasting this facility for the last 10 years, so they have run out of the chance to say what should be done with it. So the government will now say what will be done with it. Let's see how that all goes. I was pleased with what I heard from her today. I've been saying this since she won the election. Pretty much all of her public utterances have been, by and large, pretty good politics, especially considering the platform that she came in on. She has been doing relatively good politics. Can't really complain about that. She seems to be saying the smart things. Law faculty will not bring in US because all law degree is peculiar to Trinidad and Tobago. I don't think the government is looking at that for the Forex. I think the UNC had that as an idea for their base, being that the Indo-Trinidadian base has an affinity to law, and their idea was to bring law to the Indo-Trinidadian heartland in South so that people could go and learn and progress themselves right in their backyards. And I understand the legacy intent of it. I could see the legacy intent of it. And it looks like that is still their aim. That is what they want for it. I was pleased with what I heard from her today, except the resuming of hangings. What is it, that you do not want the resuming of hangings? Good night, Nathan, all on the live, locked on and listening. Thank you. She did mention using it to generate US. But she didn't speak about specifically the law faculty. She spoke about UE in general, I believe, and foreign students. That, if I remember correctly, there was a question there about expanding GATE or re-expanding GATE again. And as an idea of how to pay for it, she was speaking about foreign students coming in and basically paying full price, which could help pay some of that money towards, I guess, the local students getting that GATE funding. So there is that. Good political speech. It looked like the entire UNC was worried about Mr. Alexander speaking. I don't know if I was the only one who caught on to a bit of awkwardness during his presentation. It also was very short.
If they cannot say that whole line, it's only a few hours we have now.
What's that?
You can't read that whole page. It's only a few hours. Limited, one paragraph.
No.
It still took forever to read that.
Yeah, bro. And there was lots of assistance from off mic.
Oh my goodness.
Kind of telling him what to say. And he looked nervous. Like, I don't know. I wonder if the PR coach, because it seems like they do have a bit of public facing coaching going on. That's my assumption. It looks like they spoke up. And who was it? I think it was Dr. Munilal or someone of them said that they said that the Prime Minister already told them to make sure and stay in their lane. And she said from off screen, stay in your section. So they're being very careful of words. Something I noted was they're trying to make sure the horrific word sticks to the Penal DB campus. Every time they mention it, they try to remember that exact word, horrific. So it seems like there is some public facing coaching that was going on there. And if so, I don't have a problem with that. As I said, Mrs. Pusal-Bisessa seems like she's doing good politics. If she continues doing good politics and get the good actions to it, grand. As the public administration minister said, though, to basically hinge on to some of the things we were talking about before. We can't say really if they're going good yet, because they also admit they're still in the assessment phase. So they're still assessing things. We don't know how things are going to turn out ultimately. They're assessing. Forget Alexander for now. Why? Alexander is in a key role, eh? What's that, Ronnie?
I say between the national security, between the splitting of the national security, them two fellas and them Lord Father, is the arms and the paws. Pause every other word. Oh my goodness. It was really hard.
But But Mr. Sturge is a lawyer. He is supposed to be comfortable in that position. Alexander is not a politician. Alexander is not a policeman. Alexander is not a politician. So what is he? He is by definition a politician. Do you mean he hasn't been a professional politician all his life? Well, okay. But he is by definition right now a politician. And I don't approve on like giving someone a bribe because they aren't a politician. That's if you want an excuse and you're going up for the job, well then don't go up for the job. You don't have an excuse. You put your name down for the job, so that's not an excuse that you wouldn't.
That you could do the job.
Exactly. I don't want to hear any excuse about you're not a politician. Your thoughts on Prakash Ramada awaiting word from the Prime Minister on a position in the cabinet? If I was the Prime Minister, I wasn't giving him a please. I don't.
Prakash Ramada again?
He is the man who dragged the corpse. He is the man who dragged the cup into corpsehood, dragged the corpse into the graveyard, dug the grave and threw them inside and threw the dirt on top of them. He killed COP and made sure it was buried.
Yeah. The man disbanded the party to join. Oh gosh, poor guy. That's okay. Next time.
If you know, I don't like the opportunist flavor I get from that whole scene there, and it nearly hurts me because COP had the opportunity to change the landscape of Trinidad politics. We would have already had that change. COP was in 2007, won in the hundreds of thousands of votes. They didn't win a seat, but they were clearly on the up. All right, okay, fine. You decided that you wanted to go with the People's Partnership and join this partnership. I would disagree with that, but okay, you went nonetheless and you all won. Well, as soon as things start to hit the fan, dive out of the partnership. How you mean MSJ beat you all to diving out of the partnership and was able to save name and save fees? But no. They excused themselves all down to the end because that guy had a seat and he was well kept. After they got out of power, he resigned, leave the party and gone. The party now looking to scrape up the last few shillings and see if they can reassemble themselves. Election bell ring, this man returned from Ohio to hops back up the party and drag it back into the same thing, hoping to get the same result, I would presume, hoping to get some position and power. I despise that kind of opportunism. It ruins the third party landscape, it ruins the political landscape. Like, sir, if you want to get power out of the UNC, return to the UNC, pay up your membership fees, get your party card, and go up for the internal elections. Stop trying to always hinge on from the outside using this facade of a third party. You aren't a third party, you're someone trying to get power inside of the UNC. I find Cams should leave him right where he is there. Everybody wants to get rid of the PNM when in fact it's the UNC that is the existential threat. I think both are tied together. Not saying they are both the same, but in terms of if you have interest in getting rid of one or the other, it's kind of all part and parcel tied up together with each other. The reason PNM is where PNM is because UNC is there. The reason UNC is where UNC is because PNM is there. They're flip sides of the same coin, as it were. Not saying they have the same behavior, but the circumstances of each is dependent on the other. So, I don't know if I'd put it that way. Was it Aretha in the box waiting there?
Aretha was waiting. I'm not seeing any requests.
Yeah, she's there.
Hey, man. What needs I just want to point out.
Rooney, good night.
No, just now, eh? Good night. Let me listen. I just want to point out again, the country is being told, we don't know if the treasury and we are assessing the treasury while giving jobs to the highest key public sector. I pointed that out again. You keep hiring ministers, more ministers every day. Next week, we're going to have about 60 ministers in this country. Right? And it's like, those are the highest paid public servants. Because they technically are public servants, right?
They are.
Those are government workers or whatever. The government paying them directly. And you keep hiring them. So it's like you're adding on to the salary bill of the country, which is already so high. So it's like, you can't tell me you can't find any money. Because you find any money for them. You find any money for your people, but you make know how much ministers we really need. Every ministry might be about at least 2 ministers on a palsec.
Well, there are lots of mouths to feed, I guess. Nathan, what do you believe a third party needs to become an actual force? Mpande's party is still too early in development to pose any sort of threat or get traction. I think what they need and what you said about Mpande is kind of linked. They need stability, they need continuity, and they need individuality. Any party that allies themselves with one of the major parties would seem just like a party group for the other major party. That's eventually what they become. So what they need is individuality. You are a separate entity. We don't have to be worried that today or tomorrow, if we cast our vote for this third party, they're going to carry our vote over to some one of the other main parties, because that was always their intention. So they need that separation and individuality. Don't get tempted by the power and take a bite of the power apple too early. Continue. They need continuity. Yes, her party is young, but they showed some promise in the last election. I don't think the next election, should they continue on the political landscape, that they will get less votes. And I think they would continually get more and more votes should they remain on the political landscape. That's generally where I think that trajectory would be headed. So what they need to do is stay on the political landscape. Keep talking, keep advocating for issues, keep your name in the news to some extent, and keep your party on the ballot. We're seeing right now, for example, in the home of the parliamentary system in the United Kingdom, they're having some major switchovers with their big parties. Their major parties for a long time were the Tories, the Conservatives, and the Liberals. Labour, right? Labour, they call basically their Liberal Party, Labour and the Conservatives. Now it seems like some of their third parties that have been around for a long time are set to take over the main parties. Reform UK, nationalist leaning party, is seeing much upswing. Many of their pollsters are presuming that third party may actually make up the next government. And other third parties are in fact winning out from even the other parties too. That's what you need to do though. Remain. Good night, Paul Duncan. She making the 50K new jobs. Michaela, much more patriotic than Kamala. Okay. Amalski said, well said, bro. It's more of a societal than political problem. Their party doesn't need to be that bad. Their views. Mpande needs to stop going into hibernation just when picking up traction. That's true. That's why I said you need to remain on the landscape. Now, to be fair to her, the last election was the first one where they contested so many seats. So I can understand. All right, you weren't there all the time, but now that your party exists, you need to remain. You need to remain.
It's the first one that they contested at all. She never contested election before. It was her first election.
Right.
Well, without UNC, because she did go up under UNC.
Mm-hmm. Do you think she will honor any of her promises given price of oil remaining same? The price of oil isn't even the main thing. And the price of oil could go up to $1 billion if we don't have much oil to sell. We don't have much oil to sell. So it's not just the price of oil is the consideration there. And no, I do not think, if you're asking my opinion, I don't think all of the promises made would be able to be kept. And to be honest, I said this on the very first night when they won. There are some of those promises I have no problem with them breaking personally. My personal opinion, I find they should break some of those promises. I don't think public servants should get more money.
I agree. And I think Waka need to downsize.
Me too.
So it does go.
I think that whole keeping Wassa in place thing, cut them up. Cut them up.
That's just my thinking.
Smaller parties have to test themselves in local government elections first. I don't necessarily think so. I think they just need to contest all the elections and remain an individual party. Remain an individual party. I think her pride might prevent her from going into a coalition. It's probably best to become a force. Yeah, I do not want her to go into a coalition. I don't think in the long term a coalition would work. A coalition would just erase your party. And then
It depends on how you do a coalition, though.
Sorry?
I say it depends, I guess, how you do your coalition.
Well, I mean, if you do a third-party coalition, well, it may not erase your party. But I'm speaking about coalition here, speaking about with the major parties, with the two main parties. Anytime you do that, you're basically erasing your independence. And basically for the entirety of your political career after that, people will see you as partisan to one of those sides. Like Mr. Alexander, not the strong former police one, the next Alexander. The talk about the real truth is, many of us always viewed him as basically a UNC proxy kind of political character, even with some of the tangles he had with UNC. Because those who are in the know, they know where he came from. They know where his political bona fides were made. And when you have that, no one is going to honestly look at you as a third party. That PEP is dead. That is dead.
He said he shut down the party and join UNC. But that party was never a real party.
Yes.
Because how much times he resigned from the party and came back as the leader of the party. That was never a real party to begin with. Let me talk about real things, like Trinidad and Tobago, which is in fact a real place. I not seen your request.
Amalski, I don't believe that. I just gave you the example there of the United Kingdom, where we see their third parties are on the rise, without having gone through coalitions. There's a different political landscape that we are in now. It's a wholly different political landscape. It's not the same politics of the 90s and the 80s and the 70s. Things can change. Things can change. Don't be surprised if you see in the next two elections a third party is rising strongly to that pole position. And the kind of attitude, to me, it frustrates me, and not frustrates me, it annoys me, because I was looking at this at the jump of the election too, where nearly everyone in Trinidad, if given the chance to speak about politics, say what we need is a third party. We need third parties to come out, and we want third parties and more people to join the politics. And then the moment a third party comes out, we say, nah, them ain't gonna do nothing. You can't vote for them. Them just split and vote. Like, what are you talking about? Are we idiots out here? Are we fools? Are we all fools in this country? Do we not understand how these things must work? Or do we expect that a third party must come out and tomorrow they come out and they just take over the whole of the UNC or take over the whole of the... What are we looking for? You want a third party, but then, nah, boy, that was split the votes, boy. What did you think? How do third parties grow? If I were to guess, I would say that Double G probably did resign to make a possibility of that job. I don't doubt that he is going to put his name in the basket again. And remember, at one point in time, he did top the merit list. So it may be interesting to see how it all goes. It may be interesting to see how it all goes if he puts his name back there again. Most of the electorate are clueless masses. What do you mean? Clueless in what way? I hear you, but think of the UK's literacy rate and ours first versus third world societies, but I get you. No. The UK isn't going to third party because of their educated intelligentsia. It's the working class people changing the politics. The educated intelligentsia continues voting for who they always voted for. It's the normal, regular people that do it. That's how it happens. That's what goes on.
Oh gosh, I forgot.
Most of the electorate are clueless of the issues. It's according to what you consider the issues to be. Maybe what you think might be an issue for you may not be an issue for them. But yes, a lot of people are not in the know about a lot of things. A lot of people don't have the time to spend digging into things. They're working 9 hours a day. They don't even come and take in the news, much less come and sit down and take in a mindful live late in the night to talk about politics and discuss the nitty-gritty workings out. They don't do all of that. They don't have the time to do it.
But some of them don't care on some of the issues.
True.
Much like I've been listening to the I know we just had election, but I don't care about that. I was listening to American elections. Well, not their elections, but since Trump came in, a lot of people have been making like this noise about like conservative immigrants who was supporting Trump and now they're getting deported and whatnot, right? And people laughing at them like, ha, that's good for you. But the thing is, I may agree with certain things and I don't agree with others, right? So I am an immigrant that sought to come here legally, but I am looking at that immigrant down the road who came here illegally and is causing crime or is doing this or whatever, like for instance, the Venezuelan gangs, the Haitian gangs. Now, there might be really good Venezuelans and really good Haitians came to America for good living, but they also thinking about, okay, these other immigrants gonna make it harder for me, so I better be supportive of the person that will get rid of those immigrants, you know? But unfortunately, in life, the good people are always the ones that get swept up in the madness, because probably you were thinking, you know, well, probably let me follow the law and let me go and put in my actual papers and let me come to all of my appointments and this and that and the third, and they know how to catch you. But the gang, they never came and did nothing, so them running and hiding. Much like, you know, right here in Trinidad and Tobago, where the people and them who was like, I want to be the upstanding person, like paying my property tax. And now you're hearing, well, you can't get a refund. And if they do scrap on property tax, you alone get penalized because no one else paid it. So you understand? Sometimes good people just get caught up, but just because I agreed with a party or a person for one reason doesn't mean that I agree with them for all reasons. And I may agree with them for the one reason I may agree with them might be such an important reason that the 99 other things that the other person have really can't sway me. And I think a lot of people like to discredit people who have who find issue with people that they support, but I agree with it. If you support somebody and you cannot find one issue with what they're doing, then you're not supporting, you're just a blind follower. You must be able to say, well, I vote for you or I agree with you here, but you see there, yeah, you can't agree at all. You understand? I find like that's more as a genuine supporter, not just a mindless follower, you know?
First off, yes, I agree with what you said there. I think though on that US story, I think much of those stories are exaggerated and some are lies. I don't think they're illegal immigrants that were supporting Trump, expecting him somehow to spare them. No. I think those are stories basically touted by the liberal media to attempt to sway the public view to what they want it to be. That's so weird that Trump's parents who immigrants are moving so drastic against immigrants. He's moving drastic against illegal immigrants. I think all of his wives, 3 wives did he have? Or at least 2 of them were immigrants. Legal immigrants. There is a difference. There is a difference.
And the VP, his vice president,
parents were legal immigrants too, from Cuba. Not his parents, sorry, his wife, and his Secretary of State, sorry, Marco Rubio. His parents were legal immigrants from Cuba. So it's and people keep saying this, and like they don't put the 1 + 1 = 2. They're like, how Trump so much against immigrants and his parents and his wife is an immigrant? Doesn't that explain something to you? It's illegal. And if you listen to a lot of liberal media, they would refer to it as undocumented. Undocumented means illegal. The people break in your country, and I would think that Trinidadians would at least have some sympathy for this. They would at least have some amount of sympathy for this, looking at the state of our country and what they're doing. Trump's deportation rate is no higher than previous administrations. Yes, that's true. Actually, it's in fact lower than some previous administrations. But also, that's because they are fighting him at every turn. They are suing him literally about 5 times per day. And they have judges in positions, and the judges keep putting spokes in the wheel. Each time he attempts to get a certain group out, some judge from some corner says, no, you can't do that. So if he had his way, those numbers would be flying up there. But he is not having his way. That's a big part of it. What I think about the rental properties issue, Paul Duncan, I've been speaking about that a long time. I would love if the government could build their own buildings. Now, to be fair to the person I still say I believe to have been the best prime minister in my memory, Mr. Augustus Mervyn, his idea for the government plaza was a lot of that. You have government services in government buildings, so you don't have to pay for it. I am in full support of that plan, even though I am aware that there's a high likelihood that at the end, what it may be is not change but exchange, as in some of the favored renters from previous administrations may change to a new group of favored renters, and that may be part of their plan. Yes, I'm aware of that. But if indeed they are looking to decrease that cost, I am all in favor of that.
I have a question for you, and I have a question for Rooney. Now, it's not, because I have to be careful. I was told something, so I have to be careful. I have to be careful as to how it is I come across. I am not coming, and before I say what I have to say, I want to make that clear. I'm not coming at anybody. But at the same time, nothing from 2025 go forward is going to fly over my head, and I'm going to pretend that I didn't see it. So in 2020 or 2018, we would have had a matter here in Trinidad where just before they were about to change the dollar notes, a pastor allegedly, well, it's not alleged because it was all over the news, would have
30 mil.
Had 30 mil, right? And this money, I don't know if it was seized. I don't know what went on with it. I don't know if it matter is still before the court. So I just making some cuts because I don't want Nathan to get in trouble if the matter is still before the courts, right? But it is very strange to me that the lawyer that is representing the pastor in this case, where it was a clear-cut case so far in the eyes of the public of money L, you can finish the word, is today was sworn in as a minister in the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. I am not going to sit here And I don't know why persons are letting things fly over their head. Because the reason why I said we're letting things fly over our heads is because from time to time, when situations like these things happen, and the public and the journalists and everybody who is be at those post-cabinet meetings don't do the necessary investigations, ask rhetorical questions, and don't ask the truth, or ask facts, or do their research as to what it is really happening in the public domain, and only scratching the surface. Then later down the road, when things happen, they will say, but somebody go pop up. But, and he was, no, it happened in front of your face, in the glaring eye. And I am very much concerned. I am very much concerned as to why it is, if we go in and we're moving forward positively, and I have to give the political leader and the Prime Minister her kudos as to trying to move forward and crossing all her I's and dotting all her T's, but sometimes we have to take a step back and see the things, or listen to the things that persons are not saying. Where did this man come from? Where did he come from today to be sworn in as a minister in the cabinet of Trinidad and Tobago? That is what I want to know. And anybody who feel free, they can answer that question. Because I know, I see the comments coming in, and a lot of people, like, they didn't know that this guy.
But being the lawyer in a case, does that preclude you from being a minister?
This man had a whole statement put out into the public domain as to the monies of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. If he was just the lawyer, I wouldn't have a problem. If he was just the lawyer and representing his client and didn't make the bold statement.
What bold statement did he make? I can't remember.
You all go, I don't want to misquote nobody, because as I say, I don't want to get you in trouble. Go and see the statement that he put out into the public domain, which was not in the defense of the taxpayers of Trinidad and Tobago, and tell me if it is that this person.
Okay, I just want to ask one thing. So, well, obviously, I don't know. I know about the situation with the pastor, but of course, we all knew what it was. But at the end of the day, knowing something.
What do you mean? We all knew what it was. Who is we?
Okay, sorry.
Who is we?
Well, but I mean, most people in this world knew what it was. But at the end of the day, knowing something and proving something is different, right? And like, let me be real. The man went. It was the last day for monies to be changed or whatever, and his members, they couldn't change the money, so they say, you know, I got throw it in the church basket, you know, that's not no scene, and no pastor don't really need that money anyway. So that is what happened. The man ended up with a lot of money that way, like, you know, at last.
Ronnie, would you all believe that I didn't know anything about this man? You know, it's a 21-year-old university student who brought this to my attention today. And you know what? You see what you did, I did, and Nathan just did? All these are the reasons why the youths of Trinidad and Tobago will continue to distance themselves from politics. Simply because of the fact that, as you rightfully said, we all know, but at the same time, we pretend that we don't know.
It's not, no, we're not.
And there is nothing that we could do about it, because we don't have the jurisdiction, we don't have the power to do anything of the sort.
And again, it's not about pretending or sweeping it under or whatever. But for one, it's about proof, and it's about proper investigation and whatever. If that's not being done, we can't do anything about it. And two, if the man was just the lawyer and he put out whatever statement he put out in defense of his client, he's seeking the best interest of his client. And we can't hold that against the man. That is the man's job. That's what he got to do.
That leads me to the point where when I said something similar to what it is you said there, and the young person asked me, they said, really? Really? And I just smiled because I knew in my heart what the young person wanted to tell me about, because he probably feels like a little elder now. He wanted to have respect. Yeah?
And I understand. I understand where you're coming from. I understand where the youth's coming from.
Yeah.
Nathan, did you find that statement yet?
No, I'm still looking, Fed.
Good night. Yeah.
Hi. No, you
When
can
it
go ahead.
comes to this, right?
You can go ahead.
A lawyer has a role and a function and a job. If a lawyer is employed by a client to do something within the remits of the law, that's his job. Precedent has already been set in Trinidad to be when it comes to lawyers and sitting in government office. Please remember, we already had an attorney general was a lawyer for one of the biggest drug laws in the land, sitting in office.
And then hang him. That one is not, none of that information is alleged. None of that information is alleged. It is not alleged, it's a cliff, it's a fact. He was the lawyer, that is written in ink, and he was the responsible attorney in charge of.
Oh, Jesus.
Exactly.
No, yeah, no, that is true. That is true.
Fact.
That is true.
I
Just
mean,
to
you-
attach nothing else onto it and to get photos of it. Because as we can see, we have our present former sitting minister going around hitting people the court closed now and winning defamation lawsuits. So you know what going on. So prevent yourself from being up in our court. Because Bridget winning everything.
Let me bring it
Bridget have
present.
a new stream of income. You feel me?
Let me bring it present, right? You have a present minister in the present administration who is an attorney. I don't know if he's senior counsel. Who were his main clients?
One of them is lawyers.
Wasn't his main clients capital offense clients?
That's just, listen, I don't have no problem with lawyers if they defended murderers and they defended whoever. Sometimes you. That is the job.
I am seeing the representation of the lawyer with the pastor, but I'm not seeing what the statement is that is so reprehensible. He made statements, but the statements were in defense of his client. Like, I'm gonna be honest. If I were a lawyer,
You would do the same.
I would represent the 30 million pastor.
Same.
No, to be honest, I might not represent some of the other people some of those other guys represent. Like that there's a guy downtown.
Okay.
There's a guy downtown that represents everybody.
Just take a pen.
I
You see
wouldn't.
that what you now say? You see that is what you now say? That's what you now said there?
Yeah.
That is what the young man was saying.
What?
Repeat what you just said.
That I would represent the 30 million pastor?
You wouldn't.
No, I said
What?
I would represent 30 million pastor. I wouldn't represent some of the other people, some of those other guys.
Some of the other people, that's what I say.
Oh, well, yeah. But still, I understand that's a personal moral choice. I understand what, like, for me, the idea of lawyers to me, in a moral sense, you could represent somebody, even somebody who's convicted, and still give them good representation, where you don't have to lie. Your job is to tell them about the laws and what they need to do and what they can do and the options they have and all of that. You could still provide very good representation. So I don't necessarily hold that against people. Now, the reality is we know how lawyers operate and that the lawyers are known to be shifty characters. But also the reality to balance with that is nearly all of the parliament is lawyers, and it has been that way for a very long time. It has been that way for a very long time. We have had lawyers at the top for a long time. I personally don't like the idea. For me, I kind of feel like there could be a conflict of interest. Like, there's a balance of both. I understand why we have lawyers as legislators, because the job of a legislator is to write law. It could make sense that you have lawyers there to write law. But nonetheless, the lawyers are the ones that use the laws to go and fight in court, especially with a former AG out there fighting against the government that he was responsible for crafting laws for. That seems highly inappropriate to me. I kind of don't. It seems like the player of the game is also the rules maker of the game. How could you be a player in the game and the one making the rules? So that seems a bit.
No, but I mean,
So I feel just let me land it there. I feel the balance could be. Because either way, when parliamentarians want to write a bill, they have to pass it through their legal counsel. Like, we could have lawyers as the counsel and probably ban lawyers from parliament. Ban them. None of them.
no, well, the thing is this, right, is an attorney is an attorney. A lawyer is a lawyer, right? Like, one is practicing law, one has a law degree. Now, if you want to differentiate among that lines and say, well, somebody who is an attorney shouldn't be able to be in parliament, that's fine. But we will still need people who actually know laws to actually craft laws. So I'm fine with lawyers being part of the parliament, but attorneys...
But they either way, when they write laws, they send them off to a legal counsel. You know, the laws aren't crafted by the parliamentarians; they're crafted by lawyers in their employ. So what I would like, and really and truly, much of the Republican system is kind of intended like that. It's not that we're supposed to have experts in all of those positions. The Minister of Housing isn't necessarily supposed to be a housing expert. The Minister of Housing is supposed to be someone that understands the culture, the direction, and the feel of the country, what the country wants, and they employ that into policy, and then we hire the technocratic staff to enact the policy of the visionary. So the parliamentarians are supposed to, as it will be, visionaries. You come up with the ideas, you bring forward the ideas from the population and put them forward as the proposed laws, and then we get the lawyers to go in there and bring the legal language to the ideas. That's how I think a better system would be crafted, in my opinion.
If we used to go along that road, the present administration wouldn't have any members of parliament. Right? They wouldn't. So
True. I ain't mind though. I fed up. Yeah, Ronnie.
I don't necessarily disagree. I guess the thinking or the thought process behind it is like, if you come from that line, you kind of know how, or you know what is best for it, right? So we have the Homeland Security guy. Oh gosh, no.
You forget strong man name?
What I'm talking about? Yeah, so he's basically the culture of the police service. Huh?
That
I hear what you say at all, Nathan.
I say you forget strong man name ne?
Well, okay, that puts it right. So, yeah, boy. I take a pause and it just went away. I feel like that's how we just feel, you know. That is what happened.
Behave yourself.
Anyway,
Behave yourself.
But he would have an understanding. I mean, honestly, I listened to the post. Right, one thing I was listening on that post cabinet thing, I realized I getting red lines in my thing. If I'm breaking up, all you'll tell me.
Nah, you're going strong.
Are good?
Yeah, real good.
Okay, good. I was listening to it, right? And one of his contributions, one of the contributions he would have made was we absorb how much of our auxiliary fire officers or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
And my thing is, and the equipment to be used, because we're not throwing firemen at the fire. we using machines. So if we are hearing a lack of
He answered that.
machines or fire trucks or
They're in the assessment
yes,
phase.
they're now doing whatever.
Assessing.
They're doing the assessment, yes, but why did you hire? Why did you take in 5,000 auxiliary staff?
5,000.
You don't need to. I don't know if it's not 5,000, I just seen the number.
Oh.
He said I'm taking how much of it was
250, I think.
And that's my thing. How much?
250.
I don't know.
And according to what he said, is it costs no extra money. According to what he says, is there's no extra cost to it.
How is there no extra cost?
Okay.
If I am to, this is what he said, and when he said that, I was wondering about that, because if there's no cost, what I would have to assume is you're going to pay the auxiliary fire officers the same auxiliary salary while you pull them into the official fire service. Now, I don't know how that will pull with the people and their pay and their paychecks. But that's what he said. He said there would be no additional. I have no idea how something like this would have no additional cost. I don't know. I don't know how that has no additional cost. But that's what he said.
I don't know. I don't know either, but at the end of the day, it would be better to worry less about staff and worry more about getting your equipment up.
Well, they have to assess that, Ronnie. They have to assess
I don't
that.
want to hear nothing about staff. I'm fed up about employing everybody. Stop hiring people. I'm fed up. Every building, listen, what you're hiring these people for? You're hiring more people, right? And then you're going and call them and they're going and tell you, well, we don't have a truck, you know. So now you just add 10 more fire officers to sit down in the same fucking building that you don't have a truck to send them on a fire for. Save the money and send and buy a truck.
Ronnie, buying a truck is not good. Buying a
So
truck.
it wouldn't cost $5 million.
But buying a truck not gonna solve the problem. Just buying new equipment wouldn't solve the problem. What we have is a cultural maintenance problem. The
Yes.
fire service has a management. There are people in place to fill these roles. And if they are not doing the job, they are not doing the job. Why is equipment not being maintained?
You know, you said something there, Abdul. And
Disagree. Fire doesn't maintain their stuff though.
not that good. They maintain some of their stuff, but not all.
Better than the rest.
You said something there, Abdul, and it made me wonder about this. You said the fire service has a management level, and that's through the police service also. But for the fire and police service, both of them, generally speaking, their management class comes not from people who have learned or have specialized in management abilities. They progress through the ranks. Who is to say somebody who has had X amount of years experience is actually a skilled manager? Management is a skill. If any of you have ever worked under an incompetent manager, or any of you had the opportunity, like I don't know if any of you ever had this opportunity, you work under someone who has repute of being a good CEO or a good director or something, and you work for them or work under them or work with them for a while, and you're like, wow, that's why you are in that position. Like that happened to me before, where you work alongside somebody that is very successful at what they're at management, and you're like, that's why they're successful. They have principles and ideas. It is a skill. Not everyone could do it. So just progressing through the service, should that be? I know. Yes, there are degrees and things that are warranted, but by and large, it's people who progress through the service. Maybe we should be hiring managers for them from managers. I don't know.
And you could be contract as well. Contracted. That might be useful.
But Ronnie, Nathan, listen to what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
The management shouldn't be an issue. Because listen, you have a former commissioner of police who attempted to make all the police vehicles of one particular source and have a carpooling system, a whole management system like what they do in North America, for the police service vehicles. The reason this was shut down is because purchasing of police vehicles has to be shared, and fire service and TTDF has to be shared amongst all the car dealers. Everybody has to eat our food. That is why that was shut down.
Correct. You're correct. You're correct. And the truth is, if you dig into so many corruption issues in Trinidad, you'd realize that's why it is the way it is, you know. Something looking so chaotic and you're like, but all they have to do to solve this is move this here and do this there. Why they don't just do that? You recognize here and there would put an imposition on somebody's money. Somebody's money would get cut up if you do that, and that's why they just don't do it. Like in some areas,
cut is a glorified mechanic shop, crazy.
facts.
That way it is.
Facts.
It is.
Facts. Like I watch sometimes. Every now and again, I don't know if it's the regional corporation or who does it. Sometimes they hire a tractor to cut the side of the road, and this tractor would be cutting probably 3 miles on both sides of the road in one day, efficiently. And then I watch they send out a team of 20 people to cut 20 feet of grass at the side of the road. I'm like, why? Somebody needs the money.
What's up?
I just
But Nathan,
Yeah.
it's ironic that you bring up that when comes, because I was going to tell you too. Another thing that I looked at. Now, I given kudos to everybody. These days I seen on TikTok, when I don't know if you've seen it, that person's posting, they're doing the work, they're scrubbing down the pavement, they're washing the drain, they're taking out all the filth from under the drain and whatever for free flow. But in reality, and let me just take it back. These machineries, right? In a week time, the flooding took place, I think it was 2 days ago. And in reality, some of these same councillors and regional corporations would have told the normal citizens a couple months back that these equipments were not working. So how? I'm trying to figure out, because something over this last couple of days, especially with these regional corporations across Trinidad and Tobago, I'm not singling out any. How the flood take place 2 days ago, but a week ago, and the machinery working, and a week ago, only saying that the machinery was down to the point where maybe all they had to get new ones, whatever.
They could subcontract it. They could have contracted out the flood work, and that's another thing.
Emergency works or not?
I find they over dredging some of these rivers. I always complain about this with the geographical and environmental tinge that I have from schooling. And from my knowledge of environmental, they over dredge many of these rivers. But you see a little sticker on the side of those excavators showing who the contractor is, and you recognize that an excavator and an operator may be giving someone upwards $5,000 a day. They want that excavator to be out working as long as possible, even if it's literally spinning in mud. They want that. So they could contract it out, and they do contract it out. They could contract out flood works.
Alright, so let me doing this thing again. All the national security services and the vehicles, why are they purchasing $1 million vehicles for certain rank officers across the board, whether it be TTD, fire service, air guard, TTPS? Why are they purchasing these $1 million vehicles to transport particular officers? They've seen them on the road daily. The new set of Toyotas, the Jeep Cherokees, these is $500,000 and up.
They announced it for ERLA. They announced that they were procuring those vehicles under ERLA. And bro, it's kind of like the regular citizens get 4% while the government gets 40%.
Correct.
We are better than you. We deserve better than you.
Okay, exactly. Why would I? Why would the king be in a small shack with the peasantry? No, I have to project kingly behavior. I have to project looking like the king. You understand? So I live in a castle. You know what I'm saying, guys? Even though we agree that these people, you know, their efficiency and productivity is that of a peasant. They need to project their titles because they have the title, regardless of if they're efficient or productive or not. They do. And,
Bro, you know, I've been saying a long time, I think like monarchy might be the most honest governing style. I'm not saying it's the best, it's the most honest. Because at least this man up there saying he believe that he better than you and he looking out for his family first and his family going to get everything when he dead. Okay, you're being honest. Instead of everybody still believing that same thing, if they get the chance, they do believe they're better than you. They are looking out for themselves and their own first, but now they have to mama guy us, and we all must pretend like they believe everyone is equal and we're looking out for everyone's good. Sure.
Somebody need to give. If somebody get Gibbs a call, and let Gibbs come back and put the thing on them in place. Because I honestly don't understand why. Because you as a senior super ACP or DCP, wherever your rank is, and whatever the services, when they're up on them higher ends, why does the state need to provide a certain level of vehicle for you on the job so you can sit down in a Tucson with your escort?
And the thing is, most of the upper level vehicles in the regular police employ are already pretty good. RAV4 is a relatively top vehicle. There are RAV4s already in the police service. There are already Hiluxes. There were already Fortuners. One more, there are Land Cruisers. That big Land Cruiser, that's nearly an executive level vehicle. What more you need than a big Land Cruiser? What could you need that one of those big Land Cruisers don't have in it?
That is luxury vehicles. Those are luxury vehicles.
I don't know those vehicles. I'm sorry.
The big Land Cruiser is the one that the beat up squad is coming. You see the fellows who is come to do business and they come sit down with the back door, could swing open and they jump out and thing.
Oh, that one is wrong.
Okay.
The kitchen soup.
Those are Land Cruisers. And they are huge.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I don't necessarily agree or disagree. I just have a different perspective on it. I believe, this is my belief, nobody do fight me. I think it just is easier to spoil at the top because there are less people there. You know, so you buy a Prado here, I mean, I don't know. That's what PSSs normally drive, like Prado and them kind of thing. So, you know, you're not buying that for everybody, but I have observed in like the THA, the messengers driving Prado now. So I don't know, probably that is a problem. But I don't see a problem if a PS want to be, if the vehicle, the official vehicle of the PS or the minister is a high-end vehicle. I don't necessarily agree with that or disagree with it. I can understand it, not that hard.
But is it
If you're buying one,
but the ministry is still different from the point Abdul was making. Abdul was talking about the services. That's still, like, I could extrapolate it all to the ministries, and I don't think a PS need a Prado personally, but okay. But he's talking about in the service. So why we can't buy a whole fleet of the same car and okay, one of them we don't put the wrap on them, leave it white, and that's what some of the senior officers drive. So you have a little difference, you don't have the police wrapping on you, but the same vehicle. So maintenance is the same thing. Like anybody who has multiple vehicles should know. Maintenance gets hefty, and if it's the same vehicle, it is much lower.
So when did you when is it the due date for the PM and the president to get new vehicles?
I don't know.
At some point in time they might upgrade to it.
I think they choose, not so? It's not they choose when they're going to do it.
But I don't know.
It's more, well, when they change people, they does change the vehicle.
Really? Every
Most
really?
instances. In most instances, yeah. So,
If I remember
sometimes
correctly, I
what
think
they
they
do
have the
is
choice.
when they leave in, they'll offer them to buy it from the government at whatever reduced cost or whatever. So, roughly every 5 years.
Well, telling you some money to burn.
No, like that, I could excuse that. Every 5 years, one new executive vehicle, fine. I don't mind that. I could do that as a country. Even though I could see we go the direction like the United States. It's kind of a carbon copy. This is like I could appreciate certain aspects of that. Even like with the White House and the beast being the presidential vehicle, there are certain things that are standard whoever is the president. It's the same thing. And it could be the same thing in as prime minister. I think some of that would be beneficial to us. But again, as we said before, the reason a lot of things are the way they are is money. Somebody making money.
The prime minister vehicle is a Mercedes, right? I think it's a Mercedes, right?
I don't know.
I think the last Mercedes that was ordered, it don't really be ordered from the local dealership. They actually have to order that from Mercedes because it does be a certain level of a protected vehicle.
I thought we don't have an armored vehicle here.
Yeah, no.
I don't think it does.
We are not the prime minister and the president has a certain level of armored vehicle. We are not those guys. We're not allowed to have that.
Damn. That's unfortunate.
Nah, you need to just.
I build one.
You need an armored vehicle, Ronnie? What kind of life you living out there?
I'm just a girl.
Personally, I don't need an armored vehicle.
You know, after I get my FUL, son, I might need a little vehicle.
All
When I
right.
become licensed, when I become licensed, I don't need nobody papa powering me after I papa power them. Huh?
So you plan? What were you planning to do? Drive-bys or something? What your papa power in your car?
Yeah.
Out here living a
Don't say that. Like, say, you know, everybody
LA
watching
lifestyle.
you ask, sorry, you only want my visa. I don't mean it.
Not begging. The West. Get up off your knees, bro. Get up off your
If I
knees.
want to, until Trinidad and Nigeria finalize the deal, I had to pass through America.
Just
I
go
refuse to
Mexico.
go to London.
That salvating on the lips is crazy. Get up off your knees, man.
Let's go Mexico and walk across now.
That's safe. That's safe.
Yo,
Well,
that's-
not anymore, eh?
No.
Not anymore, eh? Orange Man cut that.
That's crazy.
Orange Man cut that out. You might have to go South Africa, start up as a farmer, and they might take you in.
Nah, not nah. Your skin has to be palm colored.
No, Hiena, you might have an excuse. You say that it's not just races, all the farmers they targeting.
I ain't see that. When I see them come through waving South African flag, all I see is
They're waving American flag.
Oh, like, hello. What were they using there? Hello?
Fans.
man. Come on, man. All I saw was Dutch ancestry throughout that whole Pilgrims Road. Hey, listen. Hey. I mean, listen, I'm not mad at it. If they're getting prosecuted in South Africa, which some of them are, that's fine, you know?
But I mean, sometimes in history just come back to bite you. So
I mean, I get it. Yes, the Dutch ancestors came, and it was like, give me the land, and they stick up the people. So,
But that's not what happened in South Africa, though.
that is such a, I don't know what side of the fence to stand on issue. That issue is such a, what side of the fence they really stand on? listen, factually, oh God, only about 90% is what they say that the land in South Africa, these people own, right?
You know, there's a bit of a dishonesty too, because it's not 90% that the whites own, it's 90%, one, it's 90% of the farmland, one, and two, they incorporate in that whites, colored, and the Indians too.
Yeah.
Right. Now, I don't know how true it is. I just the information that flowed across. I know.
Yeah.
What position
That's
is
true.
What position is this? Like, what side of the fence to take in this? Because really and truly, historically, they know their land, but then they centuries down the road.
Yeah.
So, like, what side of the fence to really take in this?
No, it's okay. We could understand that, yes, the history of South Africa isn't a great one when it comes to colonization. We get that. But at the end of the day, these are the people who came, took the land from native people,
Correct.
and their descendants are the ones who tend and farm the land. So they have the expertise at this present moment to do this. I'm not saying that some way, somehow, come good and glory of the future, maybe one day the native people of the land would be the people that would have the farmland in the future. And I say no. But at the present moment, these are the people. Right?
This was eventual. This
And-
was an eventual outcome somewhere along the line. They was going to have this confrontation.
Here's a problem I find in this conflict. A problem in this conflict is the assumption that all Africans are the same grouping of people. And that's an issue in the South African conflict that people on certain sides love to confuse. All right, the Dutch came there. When the Dutch first came, they built an outpost. It was not a colony. They didn't colonize people because there were very few people, if any, on the southern tip of Africa. Very few. Main people were the bush people, a very tiny, very little facial hair, small face African group of people. They were the main people. They moved out by and large because they weren't into civilized living, so they were pushed out more than colonized by the Dutch. The Dutch built up a trading outpost. The trading outpost became very lucrative on the southern tip of Africa. It attracted Africans, the Bantu migration, from further up in northern Africa. Most of the people that are called black right now in South Africa aren't native to that part of Africa.
That's true. That's also true. They are Bantu. They are
So,
majority Bantu.
the land technically might not be theirs unless you have the view that all of Africa belongs to all Africans, and that's
You see, no, I'm not of that view because we the thing about it is that when we talk about the people who were on the land and who had a cultural tie to the land, that's something different than somebody who migrated to your land. That's just the truth of the matter. So, but the Bantu expansion is large. The Bantus are all over the place in
Correct.
Africa, to be honest. And some of them claim the land, some of them don't.
And-
right? Because they have been there for a long time. The Bantu expansion is it's a long process. It's
And
not
the
one
thing with
whole
that
thing.
is the
Right.
Afrikaners would be
But-
on that land longer than the Bantus. They would be more native to that southern African tip than the Bantus.
Exactly.
It will be overshadowed
Exactly.
to modern history, and when it comes to then they bring the apartheid.
Well, that's a whole mad thing. And you know, this could be controversial. But I understand how apartheid came about, you know. Remember the history I just said. By and large, they make the outpost getting lucrative, immigration coming from outside. You make laws to make sure your outpost is kept and governed by your people. Because you make your outpost and the lucrative money and resources that came in were from your traders. So you made laws to make sure that although the numbers may change, we remain in control. Now we know how that ended up in the long run. I'm just saying I could understand looking at it history, hindsight is 2020. You look back on history and it's like, well, obviously that's how that was going to turn out. But in looking forward on it, you could see how such a decision could have been made. Even though, as I said, we see how that all ended up. The apartheid was a horrible thing. There isn't an excusing of that. It was horrible. It was unfair. They oppressed people. There were murders. There was torture. That did happen. But it is more complex, a bit more complex than the Belgians going into the Congo and raping, pillaging, killing a bunch of the local tribes and taking it over. That's a different thing a bit than the South African situation.
Different. No, that's 1000% different. We're talking about somebody who literally came and said, you are now part of my kingdom. I own you. I own you. My brethren came and said, private property. Which is interesting.
Africans taught whites how to integrate and how to cultivate and live off the land. Behave yourself now. Stop that. Stop that real talk, no crap. Ask Rhodesia, Zimbabwe, what happened when they chased all of those white farmers that Africans taught how to tend the land. The history is known, you know. We know the farming, the progressive farming levels through general African civilization. We know they did subsistence farming. The level of farming done by the Dutch descendant Afrikaners, the Boers in South Africa, is exclusive on a global level, as in there's nearly nowhere in the world that does farming of that style and that intensity. So, especially nowhere else in Africa. So how did the Africans teach them how to do farming and they do it better than all the Africans? Come now, man. Behave yourself.
So I just was trying to continue to this. I really dislike the idea of who was the people on the land and now you live on the land, because all land belongs to somebody at some point in time. Does that mean that we all give back every piece of land to every indigenous person or tribe that it belonged to? We can't, right? So we what? We could?
No, we can't.
We can't do that. So I mean, okay, fine, it happened, it was bad, we apologize or whatever, because look, we're not too far gone. The Amerindians and them still in Arima, the Carib and the Arawaks and them still in Arima talking about who deserve the whole of Arima.
Controversial opinion. Them is imposters.
I mean, not giving them.
Yes, that's true.
So like, let me move on. Give them a day and call it George. That's
Give them a day and call it George is crazy.
Oh gosh, Ronnie, let me don't put it that way. Let me don't put it that way. Give them a day and call that.
We're not talking about that. We're talking about
arrival day.
What happened in Africa would not be allowed to happen in any other. Listen, this is what aggravates me about my fellow people sometimes.
It wasn't forcibly taken. That's not true.
This is what aggravates me about my fellow people sometimes. This kind of specialized victim status. This is what is called this what causes the black fatigue for those of us paying attention to certain trends.
Black fatigue.
No, let me just finish that point. What happened in Africa would not be allowed to happen in any other continent or race in the world. Every continent and every race faced at some point in time what happened in Africa. The reality is Africa is the oldest populated continent, so obviously it would have some of the most. And Africa is humongous. It's a different style. Like, labeling all the continents as continents make you feel like all the continents are equal. No, Africa is a separate entity. Everybody wants what Africa has. So there's a bit of difference in it, yes. But in terms of as if this is some specialized level of victim, they wipe out nearly all the natives in North America. There were native tribes throughout Europe. Listen, the Romans spent years just killing out the natives of Europe. That is what Caesar was known for. Passing through the Gaul and the Pict region and just wiping out from a side. They did that. How you think all of China become under the rule of one government? You think China evolved with one ruler over all of China like that? You think that massive landmass all had fair-skinned people with slanted eyes? You really think so?
You know what's funny? You know what's funny is that now China's like ethnic population 90% Han. That was not so 1,000 years ago. There were literally like probably upwards of 50 different tribes within China's geographical location alone. This include Mongol region, by the way, because Mongols kind of are their ancestral cousins. And even the Mongols attacked China. Like the Mongols ruled China at one point in time as well. You know, they I don't know this thing about.
So why weren't they able to carry it on?
Africa needs to have.
Real talk, no crap. Why weren't they able to carry it on in Zimbabwe?
Oh, well, that's crazy.
Alright, but listen to what I'm saying, right?
Mm-hmm.
Today, this generation, these new generations are Africans on that continent, no matter what country it is.
Mm-hmm.
Because, and it may be whether it be right or be wrong morally, because of the history between the races on the continent, there is going to be an uncomfortable period when it comes to the wealth balance and the power balance between the whites, sorry to say it like that, but I just way it is, the whites, descendants of whoever, and the black people there. Is going to have some tension. At some point in time, it was bound to happen.
Of course it had to happen. But it was, of course, was bound to happen. The history of Europeans and Africans aren't easy, right? To say the least, it isn't easy. And to be honest, the history of Africans and Arabs isn't easy either, right? So
the history of all that the point you're making there, Trini Hotep, is the tribalistic nature of humans.
No, it is. So the thing is this, is that yes, there possibly will be great ethnic tension or racial tension to come. And I'm saying no, but it's the same thing that I was having a conversation like 2 days ago. And talking about the economic inequalities of Africa and the rest of the West, right? The West being UK, America in this instance, right? And how the IMF and the World Bank goes into Africa, tells Africans what to do, and then reap the resources. I'm like, okay, well, that's true. Nobody said no. The World Bank and the IMF isn't friends to Africa. They don't go in there and say, we are blessing you with a loan of 0 interest, and you all could do whatever you want with it, right? But this juxtaposition that somehow, you know, these entities, these American entities or these multinational corporations are somehow way vastly more bad than China's subprime loans and Russia's intervention to Africa. Is like, who says that China and Russia's intervention in Africa is some peacemaking treaty of pilgrimage? Nobody said that. Do you know how much plans China has with African countries, 100-year plans that listen, Africa is in need of infrastructure. Anybody that's willing to give Africa infrastructure, African governments are willing to basically sell half their people to get it. And somehow we disillusion with the fact that African governments are totally corrupt, willing to embellish and embezzle their own citizens of all their money, running away with the coffers. We have literal African leaders watching people in the face on a phone, by the way, on a phone, talking about I will do corruption. Only I could do corruption. Y'all would, if Kamala stand up on stage today and say that, y'all will burn this whole place down. Y'all will burn shit out to the ground. But Africans can't get that nonsense. No. Come on, African governments are the most corrupt.
And Trini Hotep, this is why, you see what you said there? That is what I want people like Real Talk who talking crap here to understand. Like the idea that, you know, Africans are some different saintly humans that God specially crafted us, you know, we are up there. We aren't really corrupt. So everything that bad happens to Africans are all due to externalities. It's never the Africans' fault. They are never responsible and accountable. They are always offended and hurt and persecuted. Like, give me a chance. Okay, you taught the whites how to farm. But you're telling me the reason the farms failed when you took it back was because the whites stopped trading with you. And you teach them how to farm? Why you need the whites' help to do it?
No. Yes.
Let me say something here. Let me say something here. See, all right, well, listen to me, right? That farming issue, from a perspective of when they're talking imbalances, cool, I will understand that. Yes, obviously the white farmers who they ancestral, they master the craft. They master the craft. The world knows that. They cannot hold that against them. The only thing I will give to the people who talk in a certain line is when it comes to the imbalance. Cool, the imbalance is obvious. The imbalance is obvious. I not necessarily saying just run all the farmers off of the land and blah blah blah. Bury them in a debt some way. No. If you want to balance the playing field, however a government chooses to do it, beside wiping out everybody, cool, I have no problem.
Here's what I think you have to do by Abdul. And people wouldn't like this. You see, people who come up with the revolutionary and communist mindset, this will be an offensive idea to them. But this is actually how you do it if you don't want to mash up everything. You have to pay the people off. That is why Britain paid off their slave owners to stop slavery. And people were offended by, up till now people are offended by that. But that was how they were able to actually get it done. Versus you creating more and more and more animosity. And the reality being, regardless of how much real talk doesn't want to admit it, many of those African countries were not good at farming because they were never historically farmers. They are cultural realities. They are cultural realities. What's that, Abdul?
So, I will also add to that, Nathan. Again, and I agree with what you're saying. And we also have to remember, right? And I can't say if it is for every African country, but I would do it South Africa in particular, right? Please remember, we also have to remember that historically, the Africans were not, and I use the word African, like the Africans were not allowed to really develop those systems or those skilled crafts within a certain time frame. That's not what's up. When I come to modernizing, learning new techniques, all this learning the soil, right? That was kind of held back to a certain extent for a few decades. Well,
When?
I mean, when we say they weren't good at this, and why did the farming fail when they took over whatever farms? To a certain extent, progress was timed. Progress was held back. I'm not saying that maybe the only reason, but progress was held back to a certain extent. This is undeniable. So it have no general answer across the board.
You know, Abdul, you're right. There was persecution and oppression. I will never deny that. What I am denying is that's the reason. Because there were many other civilizations, groups, peoples, areas that did that and succeeded. Now, if you want to tell me that's the reason when it comes to Thomas Sankara and Ibrahim and them guys, okay, I'll buy it with that. Because Sankara was trying something, was in the process of it, and they murdered the man and chip him up into bits to stop it from happening. That's a different thing than you running and taking over a farm and, oh no, I don't know how to farm now, and crash the economy. That's a different thing. Those aren't the same things. And yes, sanctions happen. And they try and sanction Russia, why it didn't work. You know they sanctioning Ibrahim and them fellas, why it wouldn't work. because they aren't looking for the handouts. Yes, they did sanction Zimbabwe. Why did they sanction Zimbabwe? Because they didn't like what Zimbabwe did. Obviously, that's not hard to tell. It's obvious. There is a Eurocentrism to the Europeans. And can you blame them for that? Caribbean countries who have leaders who are of Afro descent have some African affinity for their fellow Africans, sharing that lineage. Are you offended that the Europeans have the same? I'm not. I'm certainly not. So they did the sanctions because they didn't like what Zimbabwe did. Obviously, that's not rocket science.
Which one are really does have an sharing affinity, Nathan? Which one? I'm just asking which one, Nathan.
And we had multiple trips from the African leaders and promises and talk of closer relations and such. We've had meetings and symposiums and joint. Now the results may be debatable, but the idea is there.
Well, yeah, the idea.
Listen. Africa always had famine, right, to some extent. I ain't going to lie.
Yes.
Like all agriculture is not something that's really, isolated to one particular place. The problem is that farming is very tough in Africa. I don't know why people think like Africa is the country with heavy resources, meaning that at the foot of them have many resources. The land itself is a very complex thing.
Yes.
Farming is very difficult in Africa.
And that's why they fail.
Why is ridiculous? The sea level of Africa is why certain things can't happen. So yes, they could develop farming to a certain extent, and to think that somehow Europeans, yes, they might have been taught a particular type of farming when they came, but they improved upon it. That's called innovation. That's not something that happened, That's why you chase out people in Zimbabwe and then you give people the land, and what you go do? A carony. It's basically a carony that went on in Zimbabwe. Men sit back, rock back, do whatever they want for the land, do what they want for the land, and build a damn thing on it, and farm a damn thing on it, and then shoot inflation through the roof. No, that's not how it does work.
And the thing is, amidst all of that is heavy corruption. Corruption.
On top of that too, the same man who's supposed to be this great Pan-Africanist, this great revolutionary, Mugabe, sink his country into the deepest pits of hell. Because right now there's $1 million Zimbabwe dollar. What is that about?
And you're talking about sanctions. You know what a lot of the sanctions were? A lot of the sanctions? Locking their foreign accounts. Mugabe and his boys. Because they have you suffering out in Africa there, and their daughter and son living in Miami in a penthouse. Many of those authoritarian countries like that, Many of those authoritarian countries are just like that. You look for their children. All right, this place have suffering, and all right, well, all are we going through it? You look for their children and they know where to be found. That's why, as I say, I don't know because it is authoritarian. But I could give Ibrahim some points. At least you clearly don't see that vibe overtly from him.
Who, Ibrahim Traore?
Traore, yeah.
Oh, well, it's remained to be seen. The history of military juntas in Africa isn't a nice one.
That's the point I always caveat.
But wait. Listen, right? The history of military rulers in Africa isn't a nice one. The history of military rulers anywhere, so long as you are not playing the money game with the multilateral, the multi-nation countries, the companies that, listen, I want to come in a country and mine, you go drop 100,000 US a month in your account, make it no scene, we want to pay your workers. As long as you're not playing that game, if you spend bad through your window and hit somebody, you're gonna make BBC. You pelt a big snow out the window and bust a man head. Let's be real about it, right?
No, yeah, sure.
As Nathan said the other night, listen, everybody had a good side, everybody had a bad side. I might be good to you and a demon to our next man. To get wire together.
Sure.
Traore trying to follow, as far as we see it, what the Pat Thomas Sankara was trying to follow. trying that while fighting a war within the country. Because there's a large percent of the country that they are not in control of.
40%.
Correct, and that is due to the Africa has a interesting history when it comes to terrorist groups as well. So he's fighting that too.
You know why Africa has that terrorist group problem?
Just financing and arming groups. Let's be realistic about it.
Yes, but Abdul, but part of the problem is, and I heard an African lady make this argument. She was saying the European legacy in Africa of nationizing it, making it into countries in the European form, was not the natural form of Africa. Africa was tribal. So within the country, all right, you call this Burkina Faso and all one country, but actually I know who my tribe is and I am loyal to my tribe. So it is easy for a foreign power now to always have an opponent for anyone. Because all you have to do is give some money to the other tribe. You don't even have to tell them what to do, because there would always be a tribe that doesn't like the success of that tribe. The nature of tribalism.
Look at this. So ECOWAS has an issue with the Sahel countries.
Yes.
ECOWAS
Sahel
has an issue with these countries that say, here what's going on. We don't want the French up inside of here. We don't want the military up inside of here. Go from here. We dropping out of ECOWAS, we form our own group. We could do business, ECOWAS don't want that. Why? Because a lot of the ECOWAS leaders corrupted, they might be allegedly, in the pocket of France. They are in the pocket of France. Ivory Coast, and General Langley, I don't understand it. How you could be openly plotting against a young leader who trying, as far as we know, to free the country resources from your colonization. How you gonna be fighting against that?
Because the colonizers keeping my pockets fat. Why I care about freedom and I getting money from the colonizers?
I don't understand what people think this is. I don't know what people think this is. That's the truth.
Yeah.
The situation that's going on in Sudan currently, because everybody loves to focus on West Africa, but East Africa has its own issues. The situation that's going on in Sudan, the major civil war that's going on, like 2 military outfits that came from one military, by the way.
Yeah.
Remember, are fighting a heavy civil war. One is backed by the West, one is backed by Russia. Everybody buying arms and ammunition. You know, the man who is being armed by Russia right now, the fact that his army came from a small ethnic group to the West after brutalizing people all throughout Sudan could talk about he is the right. You see, this is nonsense, by the way, because nobody seeks to benefit but the people at the top. Everybody that's feeling the brunt of the licks is African children, women, and men, and are civilians. Nobody care about these specific groups of people. All we care about is the big honchos that doing nonsense. Here's what I say. We have African native people doing madness to African native people. And nobody willing to call that. Everybody willing to talk about the West and the West and the West and American. Nobody want to talk about the fact that we have people dropping bombs on their own people. Literally. AK-47 Kalashnikovs.
Rwanda and I give Rwanda some props. But the reality is Rwanda is doing some horrible stuff out there in Eastern Congo. But the reason I give them props, I don't give them props in the idea that it's a good thing. I give them props in that they are acting as a geopolitical player. They aren't acting as an auxiliary team member. They are acting as a player on their own. Admit player one. They put in the token and they press the start button and they stand up at the joystick. That's what Rwanda is doing. Now, what that shows you though is that in standing up at the joystick, it's not all Africans unite for all Africans. It's Africans they're fighting in Congo. And the point I make on this, like with colonizing and all of this, how some people think about this. The Maroons in Jamaica right now, Bridge, shut up. The Maroons in Jamaica right now would like to create an independent nation. The Jamaican Prime Minister tell them, never happening.
That we have 50 basically independent nations by themselves, by the way. You feel that somehow the federal government of America is going to allocate your 50 acres and a mule for 42 million people, give you piece of the land to do what? To stand up in the midst of a landlocked country, basically, to do what? For you to gain resources and for me to probably fight with you? The federal American government is not going for that. Same way how the Jamaican government wouldn't go for that. The same way how any single government on the planet would not give a group of people in their own country piece of the land to do that kind of madness. That ain't making sense.
And Rwanda, it's used by proxy to oppress the Congo in order for the West to access Congo's resources. And you see, again, this is my problem with the Africans being the universal victims. They're always victims of the West.
You see, that's the thing. When we talk about the Maroons, who are we talking about? Because the Maroons is an umbrella term.
Yeah.
There are Maroons in Central America right now. Garifuna, a lot of them.
And the thing with that Congo's resources, real talking crap. The Congo itself is a fractured country, but they're selling all of their resources out to Western countries anyway. It's just that Rwanda believes because they have a more ordered country, they could make more money doing it. We know how to sell your resources to the West better, and they kind of right.
Duh.
So it's not that the West favors Rwanda because they're getting the resources over. They're getting the resources either way. Who you think Congo appealing to stop Rwanda? They appealed to the West in 2014 when Rwanda first did it, and the West threw out the sanctions on Rwanda. And Rwanda decided, oh, well, we go rock back and we go fix what we had to fix and make a swing back in the next couple of years. Now in the next decade, we'll make a swing back. We will roll back for a year. And they strengthen up and roll back. It wasn't like the West chose a side. They were fighting.
This is the thing. I brought this up in the conversation. Conversations like, okay, y'all don't want the interventionist policies of the West. Cool. There's 54 African nations. All 54 African nations does not have the same resources of all 54 African nations. Y'all have an African Union. Y'all have not yet, as an African Union, ever said that we are going to do bilateral trade with all of the countries, and then maybe you'll want to do trade with outside countries because you'll have to anyway. Because somebody can get these resources. The way the people get the resources might be the issue, right? Nobody wants child slaves in the Congo making sure we have phones. Nobody wants that, right? And nobody wants the Congo government to do that. That's crazy.
You know what actually? Let me be realistic. Maybe we live in the West, right? And
I mean, yes, we live in the Western Hemisphere.
Listen, you're in the West. We are benefiting. From those situations, right? Because the technology is coming to us cheaper because of those type of situations. Let me be realistic with it. Let me say have no cheap labor mining cobalt mines, no child labor, nobody digging cobalt out of the hand. And that to pay a fair wage to workers. Would that benefit Western population that
here's the thing, right? Obviously all businesses are trying to make sure they could have higher productivity with having to pay less. That's a moral issue on a company, but to say that a company still wouldn't benefit by paying people a fair wage, that's not true. Then all companies would operate outside of their native country and do the same thing, right? And that's not true because there's many companies that exist within their respective countries that still pay native people a fair wage and they still make a profit, right? They do.
Majority of the tech companies, the majority of the
Sure.
tech
But you see the thing, the majority of the tech companies have sold their manufacturing to China. Who is rushing up to China and say, how dare you, Chinese government, how dare you subserve your minority population to hard labor for 5 cents a day, like it's feed the children. Nobody telling China because China will slap people sideways.
I don't see ever a United States of Africa forming. I think in order for a United States of Africa to form, they need to deconstruct basically all African countries that were given to them by the Europeans, go to their tribes, go back to their tribal forms, and let the tribal forms, in all honesty, either fight it out, trade it out, or diplomacy it out.
No, but
That's
You
what.
know why it's possible, Nathan? You know why it's possible?
Why?
You know why it's possible?
Why?
And the Sahel countries are showing right now it is possible.
nobody never say no. Do you know that African countries?
Just one hold up. He was finishing.
Oh, you want to moderate me too, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Listen, right?
Why?
If the Sahel countries, as slow as it may be, slowly implementing things to make their trade and their transport between each country as easy as possible, then it could be done on a larger scale. What it would need is, if you take example of the Sahel country leaderships, the type of leaderships they are, with the exception of maybe Senegal, who leading towards them right now.
Are there any Christian leaders in that alliance?
No.
No.
Are there any animist leaders in that alliance?
Oh, hell no. You know, hell is a majority of Africa. No, all of African countries are not traditionally African spiritual centers. So let's stop that one time. The Sahel is Muslim. The Sahel is Muslim. The Sahel is Muslim. The word Sahel is a Muslim word. It's an Arab word. Guys.
So,
Yeah, but
and Abdul, we know in Africa that's a serious issue. From just we even reached to Congo and past the Congolese basin to anything in the east or south there. We just dealing with the Sahel countries and Western Africa around the Cape there. Not the Cape, around the Gold Coast there. We just dealing with them. You think those countries between the Christian, Muslims, and animists could get all the tribal groups to agree in one nation?
Nathan, there has been issues with Africans, Muslim, and Christians. That whole Gold Coast Sahel region, that's issues. Just on bare Abrahamic religion. We don't even go into traditional African religions because that would be boo-hoo. Based on that alone, there's issues. Here's what I'm saying.
But
here's what I'm saying. We want to think of Africans as just bare bones, barbarian savages that just went, no, you in my tribe, I go kill you one time. That's not how it worked. They traded, they shared resources, they did all of this. Of course, they fought for resources and land because that makes sense. Because if my tribe is expanding, where is it going to expand to? Right? We want to think of either Africans as barbaric men who just used to kill people, or just share everything because we Africans are so loving and caring about other Africans, so they share.
They were
resources
humans
and
with
shit.
all
No.
with all
You don't get
the
empires from
passions.
sharing shit. You don't get empires from sharing nothing.
And that's what I'm saying, Trini Hotep. I think what they need is to go back to what is truly, honestly Africa, because Ivory Coast and Nigeria and Niger and Botswana and that's not really Africa. You ask each person there, what's your tribe, and they know. That is what Africa is, and that's what you need to go back to. Like, by and large, you go, well, England might be changing a bit now, but you go to the United Kingdom and you ask them, what's your tribe, and they will say British. Because they are all British as in their belief. The United States had the statement, one nation under God. That's what the United States was able to do. because they had that ability. Africa doesn't. I don't think that United States of Africa is going to happen unless they return to regular, honest, earnest African dealings and work from there forward.
But Nathan, listen, right? As much as those leaders might be predominantly Muslim,
Oh my God, the garbage truck.
those countries and those leaders aren't running the countries as Sharia run countries. They are Muslim leaders with Muslim majority population. They aren't enforcing Sharia in those countries. They aren't enforcing Islamic law in those countries. Right? And I'm specifically talking about Burkina Faso, Mali, Senegal, Chad. These are the countries that flirting with, let me push out the neo-colonism. Right? They aren't trying to enforce Islam on have an Islamic state. That's what they're doing.
Yeah, I agree. I don't disagree, but it still has the conflict because the leader in and of themselves being of a certain religion creates conflict in those regions.
And listen,
Just now, before you go, Trini Hotep, just before you go, let me address some of the chat there. Child labor capitalism has no limits. It takes no time or interest in people's well-being. Listen, China is not a capitalist country and they do child labor and all. Monarchies do child labor. Child labor and advantage and slavery has nothing to do with capitalism. We are ease up on that. Christianity and religion on the whole is one of the strongest weapons against unity. It's one of the strongest weapons for unity. The strongest tools for unity. Nearly anywhere in the world you look that has the largest group of unified people, it's nearly always on the basis of religion. So show me a place in the world that is irreligious. They have no religion and they're also unified. Show me that place, please, and thank you. All right, go ahead.
China. China has no state religion. Majority of people in China are irreligious.
No, they are spiritual. They have their own religion. They have many native religions in China. Well, not many, but a native religion.
If you look up China, if you look up what the country in China, it will say like something like 60-something% of the country is like irreligious or whatever. But that's more of government oversight than anything else. So that's fine.
And they weren't created by that government. They were created by a fiercely religious monarchy. Well, imperial power.
Atheism is not a religious movement. That's crazy. Atheism is not even religious. So my thing is this. I agree. The problem with that is that if we was to shut down all borders of Africa and say all tribes need to claim back. When we see empires popping up in Africa, once again,
and that Trini Hotep, that's kind of the point I'm making. I am not saying if you go back to the tribal version that it's going to turn into the land of peace and milk and honey. I'm saying if you want a united Africa, that's what I think needs to happen. Now, it is possible for an empire to unite Africa.
It is.
And that's literally the point I'm making. Now, an empire will not unite Africa as long as it remains countries in the European context. And even in returning to the tribal thing, I am not saying claim back tribal lands. You stay where you are and we deconstruct the borders.
But you see, that's the problem. That is not what's going to happen. Like, that's not what's going to happen because people have real claims. Like, okay, Ghana and Nigeria, they have borders, but they share ethnic groups across these borders.
True.
This is an issue because now the Yoruba people can have a big swath of land that that lesser tribes of the same branch of Yoruba don't have. This is the issue. There's so much branch and there's so much division in terms of ethnicity. It's ridiculous. Now, this is my thing. I am more for a federated kind of Africa. Federated type of Africa. We possibly have one total leader, and we have different tribal leaders, like a parliamentary system.
What we need to
they have, representatives.
Let me tell you how we get in that. You go back to tribal. The empire take over. After the empire take over and the emperor rule, his son rule, then the empire kind of fractures and gets weaker. A political figure comes to the forefront and reunites the empire as a political entity instead of an imperial entity, and then you have that federated Africa.
Well, you see,
I think the younger generation in these countries right now are fully in support of getting rid of the corrupted leaders. They don't care.
True.
They're fully in support of it.
I agree.
Kenya, because Kenya has a pretty strong internet presence, they always listen that president, boy. Oh gosh, Kenya on Kenya Twitter.
Different reasons. I hope people understand this. They did not kill Gaddafi because he wanted to institute the golden. They definitely killed him for different reasons. And to say that they unalived him, it was literally
his own people,
rebel forces in his own country that literally killed him.
Yeah, but it's not.
Yes, we know the facility. Hillary herself said it. We came, we saw, he died. Yes.
There were mercenaries there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that Gaddafi thing had plenty faces, say.
True. So you telling me, Bridge, a man that did not believe in Pan-Africanism before 1999, who was Pan-Arabic and wanted to unite the Arab world.
And he was
shut down from Iran, every one of them.
He was low-key racist, eh?
Exactly. I'm going to do a 180 and be like, embrace
You know I could tell you that is not true.
What?
Which is not true, Abdul.
Hold up.
That's not what
Saying
do not
that
enter
What should we?
Saying that Muammar Gaddafi was not Pan-African before 1999 is not entirely true. That is not entirely true.
We lying.
It is not entirely true. And I'm saying that because we know for a fact, I don't know if you know, we know for a fact that Gaddafi was financing many Pan-African movements across the African continent, even as far as over, that's no Trinidad. You see, we just had like the factual
Gaddafi was funding all in Trinidad too, innit?
Even as far as over here,
yes,
in the Western Hemisphere.
Gaddafi money was reaching all in Trinidad, innit?
Let me not be hypocritical when it comes to Muammar Gaddafi. He wasn't perfect because no human is perfect, and he had the faults and the bad sides as well. But let me not be hypocritical when it comes to Muammar Gaddafi. Muammar Gaddafi, right, was very much Pan-African. Whether he is an Arab, listen.
He hated. Listen, there's no doubt he bore quite a bit of prejudice against sub-Saharan Africans, though.
1000%.
That's a fact.
Comments about West Africa.
But let me be realistic. Look at ECOWAS. ECOWAS is a big problem.
Look at this man, boy. Abdul.
Oh, that's
You're
not
Muslim showing. Abdul, you're Muslim showing. Abdul, you're Muslim showing.
That's no soda. So should we be in support of sub-Saharan leaders because they are sub-Saharan and
no.
they're total trash? They're being garbage.
I never said that.
I'm speaking about sub-Saharan as an ethnic group, not sub-Saharan as a political entity. I'm talking about the ethnic group of sub-Saharan Africans. Negras. That's what I mean.
Listen. He playing games with me, but listen. Muammar Gaddafi himself talked about the fact that his pan-Arabic views stems from him being Muslim. Here's what I'm saying. The man did not turn to Pan-Africanism till 1999 when he was shut down by his superiors of the Arabic world, specifically Egypt and Iran. So here's what I'm saying. He cowered, fled, tail between legs, and embraced Pan-Africanism right after. Here's what I'm saying.
Iranians are not Arabs. They are not, and they do not consider themselves as Arab to begin with. They are not Arab.
True.
So
Persians.
So here's what I'm saying, right? My brother took on his Pan-Africanism style of things after 1999. Thought he could have revolutionized the African world. Tried to institute a gold dinar that was tied to his country's currency, by the way. I just want to listen to that.
Which country?
He wanted to Libya. He was going to tie the gold dinar.
Let me ask you a question.
I want to spend too long.
Can you tell me which one of those African nations under the neo-colonial rule was in a position to do what Muammar Gaddafi was putting on the table? Which one of them?
Be serious now, boy. Patrice Lumumba.
Let's not asking a simple question. Put the emotions and the feelings aside and the biases aside.
I'm not even emotional or biased.
Where man, which ex-colonial, presently under neo-colonial control African nation was in a position to do what Muammar Gaddafi was putting on the table? Which one?
Patrice Lumumba, Thomas Sankara.
Lumumba dead.
Hey, but that was under colonialism, brother. Here's what I'm saying, guys.
Hold up. You're not answering the question I'm asking. It's a real simple question. But let me make it more specific for you. Financially, which one of those ex-colonial countries who are presently under neo-colonial control were in a financial position to do what Muammar Gaddafi was suggesting? Which one of them?
That under neocolonialism right now? That under
Which one? What's up? Which
one? No, none of the African countries had the amount of resources that Libya had. If that's the argument.
Yeah, none.
He was in a level of his own when it came to access to resources, and that's a fact. Now, just remember, the people that boosting Gaddafi, he was willing to send money and weapons all across the world to mess we up to it. All right, let me look to close there, people. Give your closing statements. I don't disagree, Abdul.
Was a tyrant.
Abdul, you know my views on those men. I don't disagree. I just don't like how some people like to run with a hero narrative. Like, this man, boy, this was the best man out there, and he was the one that stand up against the West. No, these people were seeking their own motives, and they did some good, but they did a lot of bad too. That's my view on those guys. You know that.
What was wrong with a dictator? That's how we have a democracy in Trinidad and Tobago, right? Where government changes every 5 years. And every 5 years, if the political party change, whatever plan the other party had, it is squashed. Right? So, you're saying he was a dictator, as if being a dictator necessarily have to be a bad thing.
I didn't say that.
We have a democracy that isn't
I never say that. The whole point about it is a dictatorship in the historical context has never been producing of a proper leader.
Probably we should. Never is a strong word. Never.
Okay.
I wouldn't say never.
Because monarchies are effectively dictatorships, right?
Right. And there have been successful dictatorships. The dictatorship in Singapore's beginning is why Singapore is successful. MBS and those guys in the Arabian Peninsula, you cannot fight that they are successful, at least in terms of the financial upliftment of their country. There have been successful dictatorships. Numerous places. So I wouldn't say it's not successful. I would say that the dangers of dictatorships are higher than the dangers of democracies. So you have some safety and safeguarding in democracies against the craziness of a dictator. So if a dictator decides to go crazy, things will go real left. So that's what I say about Ibrahim Traore. Being a dictator makes it very possible that things could be really bad and you would never know. I'm not saying he's bad, and from all I see so far, it looks pretty good. Singapore is a success. Russia is not a success.
Success economically, you see, success economically is one thing, right? I have not, listen, other than, let me leave monarchy because monarchy is a particular type of dictatorship. Let me run on the course of the historical dictatorships of a one man have total power thing. The allotted corruption is absolutely insurmountable. Russia's democratic backsliding is one of the worst that the modern world has ever seen. China's one-party system have Chinese people getting beat by police randomly in the streets. Here's what I'm saying, guys. Is this. Muammar Gaddafi was a tyrant. He was a dictator. Killed his fellow people, murdered them, essayed them. All types of bad man thing he did. For people to now come and talk about, oh, Barack Obama killed him. Listen, man, listen. Let me put two gold in his eye when he buried. How about that?
Barack Obama nickname? You know what's Barack Obama nickname?
Obama?
What's Barack Obama nickname?
Obama?
Drone King. That is the Drone King.
He's the drone king. Of course.
That is the Drone King. So, what you're saying is, I'm telling you, Barack Obama has killed more people than Gaddafi. Barack Obama.
Oh, no, he did not. He did not. Don't be like that. He did not. Don't be like that. No.
The Drone King.
No.
Listen to
I
me.
don't hear that.
Wait, denial don't make it untrue. Denial don't make it untrue.
I don't know if I would say that. I don't know if I would say Obama killed more. I don't know because what were the high numbers during his reign?
I don't know. He told them all that.
I don't deny he's drone king and he killed a lot of people. He killed people that didn't deserve it. He bombed weddings, he bombed children and women and innocents. Yes, I agree with all of that. I'm just saying I don't know if the numbers are more. I wouldn't say Iraq was a success, and Bridge, I'm pretty sure a lot of those places you're saying was successes, you would not have wanted to live there. Now, I will say the Arabian dictatorships are successes. And as Abdul regularly says, I wouldn't mind living out there. But I wasn't going Iraq. I'm not going Russia. I'm not going China. And neither are you, Bridge. Give us an ease. People is closing. Say all the last things there. Let me roll.
Oh, wow. Okay, I guess I'll go first. As always, you guys. It was fun. It was nice. Up to now, none of them tell me when they're going to buy all the land in Ghana. But I'm going to see. Can I get no land in Ghana?
I ain't going. I get it out.
Qatar is a set. Well, I don't know about it. I like Qatar, but Qatar is fairly new on my radar. I'll tell you when I get back how it was.
You know what I'm saying, right? I think we in the West need to brush off the programming that democracy is this great ease. Democracy is a farce. And decade after decade, democracy getting the so-called democracy getting less and less, and the freedoms within the democracy is getting less and less. Look to the east, all the authoritarian states that they claim so in human rights violations. Just take a fair look at those countries. Take a fair look.
Are we really discussing democracy here, man? And dictatorship?
Trash in your democracy is trash.
No, democracy is one of the best systems to live under. What are you talking about?
I don't agree. I guess
How old is Tobago as a nation? How old?
I don't know, like 63 or something. So.
How many oil How many oil booms have we had?
Like 2, 3.
How old is UAE as a nation?
Okay, so because they have the ability to railroad anybody they want and get any project that they want to do. Just now wait, Abdul, yeah, I'm calling you kind of thing. Just now, I understand where you're going with it. Look at their development. But look at the bodies that they would lay down for that development. Would you really like to live in a country where you have absolutely no say? And only the powerful ones and the rich ones and all that.
How much do I have in Trinidad, Ronnie?
But Abdul on the UAE age.
I can come and say, oh, they can't do that, oh, they give me a HGC house.
On the UAE age, the Emirates were existing longer than they were united. So okay, UAE itself isn't that old, but the individual Emirates were there.
Right, but what bringing the point at is we live in a democracy that everybody in the West has been programmed to believe from primary school is the best thing on the face of the earth, right? Trinidad and Tobago, which has had 100 years in oil and gas industry. How old we are? 60. How much years we independent?
Yeah, 60 something, 63 or so.
UAE, which is what, smaller or about a little bigger, if something so, compared to Trinidad, same energy industry, under an authorial style of governance. Look where they are today compared to where we are today after 100 years in the oil and gas industry.
But this is the thing, we will never know because the unhappy voices will be silenced. So we will never know. You may look, you ever went? I never went. If you probably look behind the curtain, you might see several thousand people starving. We don't know. All we could see is what's being shown. And you could say, well, oh, that's West media and whatever. But even then, you have not been there to even verify the media is in fact lying or your position is
But Ronnie, I know Trinidadians living there. I know Trinidadians who I grew up with in the same community in East Port of Spain who live there presently.
I know Trinidadians out there too, and the people that have gone, for them, they say by and large it's no nightmare, it's nice. But they do say also that there are parallel societies where as a foreigner you do not interact with certain real aspects of their society. Now, as a person who wants to live there, that kind of is whatever to me, I guess. That means it doesn't bother me. But I guess if you are part of that parallel society and that parallel happens to run lower than the normal society, it's not going to be a nice time for you. So the thing is, there may be people living in hell while the outward look of it may look successful. And that's the nature of authoritarianism. The ends may justify the means in some people's view. And I'm not saying that all authoritarian is bad. I think generally speaking, authoritarian is way more effective. And if we could find that benevolent leader, we'll get it much better. That's why I say oftentimes, I believe monarchy is the most natural form of leadership to humankind. Because it's a family, it's coming down from the family is in charge of the area. They are responsible for the area. The better the area does, the better the family does. This isn't an endorsement of monarchy. It just seems to me the most natural form of governance. All right, people, that's all I have for now. Laters, hold it down. Hope you do well. I'll see you guys next week. I don't think I'll be here tomorrow. Until then, people, peace. I'm out.